Alright, hey guys, been a while since I've done a video. Decided to do something. There's a shocking lack of information about about Sin Unending Cataclysm. Sin is kind of an unpopular commander. It's easily, just shy of rank 2000 with 300 decks and 80 edhrec. A lot of people kind of consider him best in the 99 of other decks, like the other Sin and some other X-Spell or big counter decks. I saw this commander spoiled, and I was interested. It kind of works like a pseudo-sacrifice, almost devour type mechanic, where you're kind of eating a lot of your own creatures. So I'll get a lot of big X spells in here, and then obviously you can steal from others as well. So the commander here, Sin the Unpopular Cataclysm, is a 5/5 flying trample. As he enters, you get to remove all counters from any number of artifacts, creatures, and enchantments, and then enters with X/1/1 counters on it, where X is twice the numbers of counters removed this way. And then when Sin dies, you put him back in the command zone, because why would you ever shuffle him into your library? So you're going to be stealing a lot of counters, and then doubling what you steal. So the idea here is to get a whole bunch of X spells out, a whole bunch of card advantage, big mana, and then eat a bunch of your own creatures and turn Sin into a big fucking cruise missile, basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the deck here, and I'm going to show you kind of my reasoning for why I included, and what kind of the idea here is. Your standard land, Marking Signet, Commander Sphere, Fixed Mana, Conduit of Worlds. I not so much care about the being able to play lands from your graveyard portion of this, so much as just some recursion. Like I said, because you're eating a lot of your own creatures, obviously that kills a lot of your own creatures. So there's a pile of decent recursion in here, and I'm actually going to be picking up like Noxious Revival and such to add to it later this afternoon, actually. Elixir, more recursion, Soul Ring, Swiftfoot Boots, just a little bit of protection. Earth Crystal for cost reduction, and the counter doubler. Earth Crystal's pretty not one of the best of the crystal cycle. I think a lot of people consider it one of the worst ones. I don't personally understand why, especially in a counter strategy. But yeah, this one's really strong if you're trying to just get a whole bunch of counters on creatures. Millennium Calendar, this is just fuckery. Like I said, this is just you stealing counters. So get 800 counters or whatever on this, then steal it. Now Sin gets plus 1600 if he enters. Water Crystal. This one's probably give or take. I put it in here for the cost reduction because I had it just kind of sitting around in bulk. Thunder's Philosophy, another one you could probably give or take. I have it in here just for the extra 1/1s. That's really it, because anytime you have a creature that's got power 4 or greater, they come in with 3 additional 1/1 counters on them. Enchantment, Realm Reborn, just to turn your permanents into mana dorks and rocks. To help you get some bigger mana. Branching Evolution, we're going to be doubling all of our 1/1 counters that we get. Elven Chorus, just a little bit of, I don't know if you could say it's kind of ramp, kind of mana fixing. Be able to play lands from the top of your library, and then it turns all of your creatures into mana dorks as well. Garruk's Uprising, just a little bit of card draw, for some of your big creatures when they come in. Hardened Scales, just a little extra 1/1 bump. Inexorable Tide. This is one that you could probably cut if you wanted to. I included it because, I don't know, proliferation's fun with counters. A little bit bigger, cool. But like I said, you could probably cut it and replace it with something a little more efficient if you wanted to. Mana Reflection, big mana, X spells. I mean, this is just a given. You want as much mana as possible to feed your engines. Monstrous Vortex. You could probably give or take this one. You could probably swap this or upgrade this. Just to help get creatures out. So whenever you cast a spell with power 5 or greater, you discover X, which is they actually remove that card from this deck with all these X spells because you have the potential to whiff, because X can come up as 0, basically. Unnatural Growth, doubling the power and toughness of your creatures till end of turn. Come on. And then Beans, just a little more card draw when big creatures enter. Aetherize, a little bit of protection, send that shit back to the nether when they attack you. Auroral Procession, a little bit of recursion. Beast Within, a little bit of removal. Harrow for some ramp. Pulse of Murasa for a little bit more recursion, and then Tifa's Limit Break. This also could be kind of a finisher, or a one-hit kill in some cases with commander damage. And if you triple Sin's power and toughness, and he's got flying and trample, yeah, you better hope that they got some heavy-duty blockers or some defense to stop that from happening. Land's pretty basic. There's nothing really crazy here. I have Ancient Ziggurat just because it was laying around. It lets you cast just creature spells and creature mana of any color. I included Jidur and Xanarkrand, just for the colors. They're in the colors. They don't serve any particular purpose. They're kind of nice. This one gives you a nice big body, and the other one, I guess, if you don't need to mana, you can do to fuck that person in particular. Go mill half your library. Bridgeworks Battle, just an MDFC, but you can also active target removal, forces a fight with one of the enemy creatures. Thanks to Colonia. I was actually misreading this card for the longest time. I thought it was put a 1/1 counter on target creature and then put another 1/1 counter. No, this doubles the 1/1 counters on the creature that you put a 1/1 counter on. So you overload it and put it on all of your creatures. That doubles the counters on every creature that had a counter put on it by Fangs. I think this is an overlooked banger of a card. Raidia's Return. Recursion, that's why it's in here. The creature's 3/3, it's one turn, doesn't really matter, just for the recursion. Again, recursion, unnatural restoration, and then recursion, walk the ancestors. So far, nothing too crazy, just trying to help our big shit get bigger, and then bring some of it back when it gets eaten by the big lizard. So creatures, I'll go kind of into my thought process here. You don't have to like sneak into Hydra Tribal or Tyranid Tribal or whatever. I just kind of went with big X spells in general to help feed Sin. So Aberrant, all these Tyranids also have Ravenous, so if they enter with more than 5 1/1 counters, you draw a card. So they immediately become card advantage to play a creature, which is huge. Aberrant, whenever it deals combat damage, destroy a target enchantment or artifact player controls. And then you draw a card, support greater 5/5. Broodlord, when it enters, it distributes X 1/1 counters on any other creatures you control. So you make this thing huge, 13/13 or whatever, then put 13 1/1 counters on something else. Climb of This is huge, especially in a deck like this, where each creature you control will get +1/+1 for each 1/1 counter. So this will affect the base power toughness. So we'll say if Sin has we'll say 20 1/1 counters on him, and then you play Climb of This, Sin will then become a base power toughness of 25/25 on top of all the 1/1, and then the 20 1/1 counters will come into effect also. So he would essentially be a 45/45 creature from Climb of This entering. It doesn't double the 1/1 counters on it. This was my understanding when I first started playing. It just sort of takes that number of 1/1 counters on it and then also applies it to the base power toughness of the creature. Deep Close Gate, double the counters. That's it, double the counters on ETB. Endless One, just a big X spell, X 1/1 counters. You see, like a lot of these are 0/0, so like I said, you get to recursion because a lot of your creatures are just going to die when your commander enters. But there's also a chance that your opponents just won't have an answer to your commander. Enduring Curiosity, just some card draw. Whenever it dies, it comes back to the battlefield and lets you keep drawing cards when your shit deals damage. Forgotten Agent, 1/1 counter generators. Anytime anyone casts a spell, put 1/1 counter on a top, and then when your turn comes around, move them counters somewhere else. Goreclaw, Terror of Kalsisma. I have Goreclaw in here for cost reduction. Spells power 4 or less touch, cost 2 less. Whenever he attacks a creature you control, power 4 rare, it's one of the most fun to trample in turn. That's kind of whatever, everything is. 1/1 doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things for this deck. The cost reduction helps. Hangerback Walker. This one you could probably cut maybe a little slow. Enters the battlefield, but this is the kind of 1/1 that you really want, 0/0 that you really want. because when this dies, you still get value from it. So while it's a little slow, it enters the X1/1 counters on it, and then when it dies, you put a 1/1 colorless Thopter on it for each 1/1 counter on it. So it takes a lot of mana because it's XX, it's double X, but you could essentially have this thing enter, pretty big, 15/15, 20/20 or whatever, and then when Sin enters, you devour it, and then you'll create 15 1/1 Thopters. So that's kind of the ideal X spell that you would want to eat, is one that gives you some value when you die. So like I'm adding Gold Vein Hydra to the deck later on today. When it dies, it creates a treasure token for each 1/1 counter that was on it. So that's the kind of the value that you're looking for this. You want to be able to send the big lizard into Golden Corral to eat the lunch of your other creatures. Big. Hulking Raptor, just a little 2 floating mana to start your upkeep. Hulking Raptor, and this is a great card. I would say you could swap it, but why would you ever? Hydra Broodmaster. This could kind of a finisher, because the monstrosity, when it goes monstrous, you make XXX 1/1 or XXX green Hydra creature tokens. So you can essentially flood your board with huge Hydras when Hydra Broodmaster does this monstrosity thing. Hydroid Crisis, a little life gain, a little card draw, and then a whole bunch of 1/1 counters on it. Inga and Essica, turn all your creatures into mana dorks. And then if you cast a creature spell with 3 or more mana for creatures, you get to draw a card. Jumbo Cactar. This one's kind of a give or take, but I mean, it kind of sticks with the cruise missile theme also. One big fucking precision strike to end it. Kodama of the West Tree. Modified creatures control trample. So anything with 1/1 counter gets trampled, which a lot of this shit already has trample, but just helps it get through a little easier. Whenever a modified creature control does combat damage to a player, you can ramp. Pretty sweet. Market Backwalker, this is another one of those value death engines. Put a bunch of 1/1 counters on it, then when Sin enters, it gets eaten, and then you draw a pile of cards for each 1/1 counter on it. Nexus will turn your basics into Soul Rings or Arid Archways, basically. So all your basics will tap for 2 colorless that you can then use to tap for bigger X spells. Old One Eye. This is in here for the trample. Giving your other creatures trample. I mean, it's nice that it creates additional 5/5 creature token that then also has trample. And it also kind of recurs itself, which is cool too. But the trample enables what you really want. Ornithopter of Paradise. Flag blocker. Mana dork. Just kind of a staple. Steve. Sack Crack, go get a land. Soul of the Harvest, 6/6 trample. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield, your card. Control, draw a card. Play a creature, draw a card. Beast Whisperer shit. Stone Coil Serpent. Just a big X spell with reach, trample, protection from multicolored. Just a big blocker and some food for Sin. Tamer Sabertooth. If you don't know, you're missing out. This card is excellent. Being able to bounce anything back to your hand and gives itself indestructible when it does that, so you can help protect yourself and your other creatures if they're being targeted for removal. Like Sin, if anyone wants to remove Sin, you hit Tamer Sabertooth, bounce Sin back to your hand, and guess what? Then Sin gets to re-enter and steal counters all over again. This is another one of the value death Tyranids. When it dies, it'll make, like I said, it has a Ravenous thing, so more than 5 1/1 counters on it, it'll draw a card. But when it dies also, it then creates X 1/1 Termagant, or Tyranid creatures equal to its power. So, just like the other Hangerback Walker, it dies and makes a bunch of little bodies to help protect you a little bit. Termagant. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you create that many 1/1 green Tyranid creature tokens. You could probably get rid of this one. It's just a token creator if you really wanted to. If you really want to be annoying, keep it in. The Goose Mother. another big Hydra, big X spell. You create a bunch of food tokens when it enters, and then when it attacks, you can sack one of those foods to draw a card. Watcher in the Water. I included this for the counters. Just kind of steal the counters. This enters has 9 stun counters on it, and then when Sin enters, you can steal those counters. Whenever Tentacle you control dies, you untap it to 1 target crack and the other stuff. Yeah, blah blah blah. I don't really care about that. All I wanted was the 9 counters. Grixed, Sudden Storm. This is in here for the flying blocker and the spells. Mana value 5 or greater, costs 1 less to cast. Almost done here. Tyrant Guard. You sacrifice it, and then creatures you control with counters on them gain hexproof and indestructible till end of turn. A little bit of board-wide protection, because a lot of your creatures are going to end up being modified in this deck with 1/1s. Ulamog the Defiler. Now this is a little mean, and it may be a little out of place. However, hear me out. It's kind of a finisher, because you do get the cast. Target opponent exiles half their library on cast, so you can't really counterspell that. It's tough to kill with the board, and then when it enters, it gets a number of 1/1 counters on it equal to the greatest mana value among cards in exile. So you just exiled half of someone's library. Obviously, you don't try to exile someone with the biggest mana spells, because then if you exile something that's an 11 or 12 cost or whatever, Ulamog will then enter with, plus 12, whatever the mana cost is, and then it gets Annihilator X. But I mean, that doesn't really matter. Like I said, this is in here kind of to steal counters. I had it in my binder, just chilling. Figure I'd include it instead of sell it. Wildwood Scourge. Enters the battlefield, X 1/1 counters on it. Whenever 1 or more 1/1 counters are put on another non-Hydra token, put a 1/1 counter. That's easy. We don't have a ton of Hydras in here, so this guy will be getting bumped up quick. Little Active Smiling Flood. This is a last card I'm gonna cover here. This is a banger and slept on. Whenever it attacks, you put a flood counter on a target land. Land becomes an island in addition to its other types for as long as flood counter. Cool. That will counter token generation. Put a counter generation for Sin. That's neat. At the beginning of your end step, untap each permanent you control with a counter on it. So this kind of gives your shit pseudo vigilance, and also if you have any of these other spells on play that turn your characters, or your creatures, into mana dorks, that's insane value, because you could just tap out yourself completely. If you're not intending on attacking, you can tap out yourself completely, use all of your creatures to help bump your mana up even more, and then they just untap during your end step, and you still got your blockers. So I mean, it's yeah, not bad. Look at the curve here. I could probably cut down a little bit of blue production and move up green. Truthfully, it's not that noticeable. Use your tokens, your mana curves, and what have you. Yeah, that's my deck for Sin, the Unpopular Cataclysm. Like I said, he's only about 300 decks at his recorded edhrec, which is really, really low. I think he deserves a little bit more love than he's getting, if I'm honest. Yeah, let me know what you think. If this was helpful to you, I appreciate you sticking through this. Give me a like, comment, subscribe. That's helpful. I'd like to start making more videos like this if I could. I've got several interesting decks that I could go over. I'm also open to any kind of suggestions, updates. If you'd like me to go through the deck individually on camera, I could do that if that's better than doing this. Whatever. I'm open. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking out my video. Take care.